Before we move on to the today's theory, I'm going to tell you a trick on how to, now we learned our three-step process, learning, understanding, and reviewing. So I did explain you how to, understanding, practice, or active recall, or memorizing, and then you have the review. I did tell you all how to do the memorizing, and I did teach you all how to do the reviewing. But I don't think I taught you all how to do the learning part properly. Like I told you all to learn. I told you all to watch YouTube videos, that and this, but I didn't tell you all exactly how you need to learn. So if you saw my status last night, you would know that we won the entire thing. I mean, out of the 12 medical faculties who participated all the way from Kalangu to Moratuwa, we came out on top. Okay, so we had to study our entire syllabus plus additional things from our reference book. So for your reference, it would be like Campbell. So in addition to studying the resource book, you need to study Campbell. So like that, in addition to studying our syllabus, we also needed to study a little bit of the Ganox. That's the book, right? So how exactly did we study to eventually be able to answer almost everything? So now I was able to do it because now from the beginning, I studied that subject. Physiology was one of my favorite subjects from the beginning. So I studied. And then I think 2 days before, I mean, yesterday, no, I did the quiz. And 2 days before the quiz only, I actually started studying again properly. So even though our lecturer put hard work, weeks of hard work, I only studied 2 days before. The hard work was done during my phase month. That means when I was actually studying for our bar exam, then I did put the hard work. But for this quiz, I only studied 2 days before. So now when you're learning something, this is exactly how you do it. You need to pay attention to these ones. 80-20 and connection. Right. These are the main three things that you need to do when you're learning the content. 80-20, connections, and real-world applications. Right. So now these are obviously a few. If you keep researching in exactly how to learn, you might come up with more. But from the top of my head, these are the things that I actually used. How when you're trying to learn something, right? When you're trying to understand something. 80-20 connections, real world. So now when you get the resource book, can I have a resource book? Please give me a resource book that does not fall on touch. Okay. So you have this resource book. How thick is it? You can see this many pages are there in the resource book and it's only half. So you have another book, grade 3rd. Right? So now, whenever you are studying, you always feel that, what do you say, barrier. Okay, now let's say you have, what did I ask you all to study today? Unit 4, no? So you I had to study the entirety of Unit 4. And they come on the table, you, this much is left. And then again, you can't. That barrier is there, you can't study. But one thing before that. This should be enough. This should be enough. I think these technically are the same, but okay. Right? This should be enough. Now, as I say, when you see the book, when you see this much you have to study, you feel very lethargic. You can't get that push. You can't feel, you can't get off the bed and go to the table and start studying because you feel like you have the entirety of Unit 4 left. That's a problem. Yes, if you can't even start studying, then learning this is no point. If you can't start, the best thing to do is start. So how do you actually start? Now, even me, I actually wanted to start studying that physiology at least 1 week before. But then when now if you saw my other status, you could see there were around 1,000 cards. So I put like you saw the 999 number or something. You all saw my status. Okay, so that is actually question and answer format of the entire theory we have. Question and answer format. Some are essays, some are just direct one-word answers. So I have to again revise more than 500 essays. 500 essays worth of content. So obviously, when you look at it that way, nobody wants to start. And I am also no superhuman. When I also saw that, I did not want to start. Next day also I saw that I did not want to start. Third day I wanted to start that, could not start. Fourth day I wanted to start. I think I took a break from clinicals to start. I took the laptop, went to do the questions. 900 are there, no? And then I went to internet, typed in a TV series called Snowfall and watched relatable things. So you all also probably do the same. Then that day also, I just cut clinicals just for nothing. That day I could have gone. Then after that again, next day, after coming from clinicals, now this was the Saturday means Friday, Thursday. This was on Thursday. So on Thursday, after coming from clinicals, obviously I'm dead tired. Like throughout morning, I had to stand in the theater. It's AC though, this time it was AC. So it was a bit okay, but still I'm tired. I came home, I wanted to start. Like now the time is, it was around 2:30 or 2:45 when I came home after finishing other work. Then I said 2:45, let's start at 3. Then I was just sitting and again starting at 3 and then again now 3 o'clock. I'm trying to start, I couldn't start. I did something else. I scrolled on TikTok instead. Time is 4. 4:30, 5. Now it's 5. I started studying at 5. So I wanted to start studying on Monday, but I actually started studying at Thursday 5 p.m. This entire thing is procrastination. This entire thing is procrastination. Now, the only reason I can tell this is because we won not. If I told this after we lost, I would surely get scolded by everybody in the team. Okay? So, this entire thing was procrastination. The only saving grace I had was I had already made the cards like a year before. So, all I had to do was review it. I had made the questions a year before. So, now this thing is to overcome. Now, why I'm telling you this? It is to overcome the barrier to start studying. How do you do that? Right. So on Thursday 5 p.m. I was like, can't do. Saturday I have to think. Thursday 5 p.m. Friday I have to go to clinicals. And again, I have only totally accounted. I only have around 10 hours of work. I only have 10 hours left. So I have to properly make sure that I can do that entire thing within that 10 hours. So 900 cards, 10 hours. And since this is a quiz, not a paper, so I need a good night's sleep before the quiz also. Because within 10 seconds, you should be able to start answering the questions that are on the screen. Not only in front of your quiz mates, but also in front of an audience of all the best lecturers in Sri Lanka. So you have that nervousness also. So in addition to knowing the theory, you also should get a good night's sleep. So what I did was, if I had 900 questions to do, and I had 10 hours of studying approximately, I only need to do 90 questions for 1 hour. I break it down 90 questions. So that means 45 questions in half an hour. Since this is a subject I really like, studying was a bit more easier. But reviewing it was a bit more easier. The only thing that made me feel not be able to study is the sheer number. So once I started looking at it this way, I just have to do 45 questions in the next 30 minutes. So you do that. Then don't think about this number. Again, 45 questions in 30 minutes. Again, 45 questions in 30 minutes. Again, 45 questions in 30 minutes. So when you're studying, let's say a unit 4 for the next week's revision paper, for example, don't ever think you need to study unit 4. Don't ever think you need to study unit 4. First thing you do is, what is the first part? I need to study meristems. Okay, if I'm telling you the next week's revision paper is on meristems, don't you feel like you quickly study it and get it over with? You will quickly study and get it over with. Just meristems, just 1 or 2 pages. Okay, trick your mind into thinking that you only have meristems. Tell yourself, I only need to study meristems for now. Once that is done, then move on to the next one. After meristems, what do you have? Epidermis. So those specialized tissues, epidermis. Only epidermis. For now, I only have to study epidermis. I'm not going to think of anything else. Only studying epidermis. Once that is done, move on to ground tissue. Only study ground tissue. So you get the gist. I'm not going to recite out the entire unit for syllabus now. Okay, so you need to break it down into smaller things. So when you do that, the barrier that you have for studying will go. So now if I tell you, you have to study unit 4 for tomorrow, you will feel like unit 4 is very big. How am I going to finish it? If I tell you, you have to study meristems in 2 hours. You have to study ground tissue in 2 hours. You have to study this in 2 hours. I'll be like, okay, only these 3 things. Okay, I'll allocate 2 hours and finish it off. Always allocate time for each part of a big thing. Okay, so now if you're going to study unit 4, break down unit 4 into meristems. So now if you have to study unit 4 within the next week, you have 7 days, no? Don't tell I need to study unit 4 these 7 days. I only need to study meristems and ground tissue tomorrow. Is that easy or difficult? Easy. I only need to study meristem and ground tissue tomorrow. On Tuesday, I only need to study structure of plant stem and root and review what I studied the day before. On Wednesday, I only need to study 2 life cycles. On Thursday, I only need to study plant response to light. On Friday, I only need to study secondary growth. So like that, break down a certain topic into each day. So don't think about the big picture yet. Think about what we have to do only on that day. Right? So then that paralysis you will get. The difficulty in getting up and studying will go away. So always break it down. Right? So now 80-20. Now, like I told you, the resource book is very big. Now, does that mean all of it will be questioned in every single A-level paper? No, it won't. So what you can do is, you can always go through some model questions, past papers, school papers, term papers, and take a note of what they have been asked. Respiration, always asked. Photosynthesis, always asked. Organelles, always asked. Cell cycle, always asked. So then, did you have to study the entirety of unit 4? No, these 4 main topics. Now, I'm just saying it off the top of my head. You should obviously go through the past paper and see which one is actually asked most. Okay. Then, if you consider, let's say, unit 3. Unit 3, is it always asked? Is unit 3 always asked? Essays? No essays. Very, very few you get essays. So then see what are the things that you need to know. Do I need to put it, like, do I need to put that much effort into memorizing each single point? Or should I just remember the characteristics and the organisms? Should I just know which one belongs to phylum Annelida, which characteristic is for phylum Arthropoda, which characteristics for phylum Chordata? Or should I go to phylum Chordata and start memorizing everything? So it's a risk-reward thing only. So now that doesn't mean that phylum Chordata essay will never come. But it is more likely to give you a characteristic and ask you whether this is from phylum Chordata or not. Okay, so you need to break down each topic and see which one will come more times in the A-level paper or in your school paper and which one comes least. So the one that comes the most, you study that more. The one that comes least, you study that later. First, give priority to what is most important. Give priority to what is most important. Finish that, and then you do the other things. So if you let's say I have given you a first term exam, it has unit 2 and unit 3. First study unit 2. And that unit 2 also don't study from the beginning. Study respiration, photosynthesis, cell cycle, then organic molecules, organelles. Then you study unit 3. So prioritize based on what is most commonly asked. That doesn't mean you completely give out the rest. That is why this 80-20 principle doesn't necessarily work in Sri Lankan A-level syllabus. So what this one says is, you only need to study 20% of the syllabus to get 80% of the marks. If you study 20% of the A-level syllabus, you can be 35%. You can pass. You can't get a 75. Okay. So this now what I'm saying is based on this principle, a modification. You might say a modification. A modification. Right? You don't necessarily study only the 20%, but study this 20% one first. Study that 20% first. So whenever now, for example, for this yesterday's one, there were certain questions which are completely theoretical. There are certain questions which are real world applications, like the tests that you all get. So then how to interpret the tests? What do you understand from these tests? So both types of questions were there in this. What did I study first? the real world applications, the interpretation, because that is what is most commonly asked. Then only I went on the other parts. So what did they ask from? The most common ones. Just like that, A levels, biology, physics, or chemistry, they will mainly ask from what is most commonly asked. So that doesn't mean you don't study the rest. Study the most commonly asked ones first. That is the modification of the 80-20 principle that you need to follow for A levels, right? So 80-20 done. How you break it down so that you get the urge to study. Don't say you have to study NEET 4. Study meristems. I need to study meristems in the next one. Right. So now these are the things that you do before you study. Right? These are things that you do before you study to get the perfect environment to get up and study, and also to see what you have to study. So now this is over. Now, how do you actually study? How you actually study is by forming connections. By forming connections. Now, if you remember when we did the respiratory system, right? In the beginning parts, we learned the characteristics. Characteristics of an efficient respiratory surface. Characteristics of an efficient respiratory surface. We did that now. Then, when you're studying the gross structure of lungs or gross structure of a human respiratory system, they give you certain characteristics of an alveoli. Yes or no? If you think this characteristic of alveoli is literally the same characteristics that they have given in the beginning. So it has to be large, it has to be very vascular, it has to be thin, it has to be wet, it has to be permeable, it has to be thin. I said thin twice then. Okay, right. So, and over here they say there are millions of alveoli, it is highly vascularized, it's a large surface area. So you can link them. So when your brain is forming connections, it will most likely remember that. When the brain is forming connections, it will most likely remember that. Is that clear? Right. Now, let's give you another example. Did you remember how I explained inflammation last time? Yes, like I was teaching a bunch of babies, right? So you have inflammation. Always have a scope of what you are going to study. So let us say that you are going to study inflammation. So in inflammation, what do you have? You have the definition, right? You have the definition. Then what else do you have? Mechanism. How inflammation takes place. Then what else do you have? Signs and symptoms. Then what else do you have? Is that it? The symptom we broke it down. Okay. Then definition, we gave a definition. Mechanism, we wrote down a mechanism. Signs and symptoms, signs and symptoms also you can break it down. Fever, so not fever, redness, heat, swelling, pus, heat, right? Anything I missed? Pain, sorry, pain. So again, break that down also into fur. Okay. Then here you have heat, redness. What else? Pain, swelling, pus formation, and in extreme systemic cases, you have heat. Then what? Why? 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 Why do you get heat? Why do you get redness? Why do you get pain? Why do you get swelling? Why do you have pus? Why do you get fever? Okay. So when you break this topic down, but keep in mind, this is still not over. Inflammation, signs and symptoms, you don't. Definition, there is a definition. Definition is just pure memorization. No? Okay, forget about that. Mechanism. In this mechanism, didn't we learn the complement system? Did we learn about the complement system in the inflammation? If I recall correctly, yes. What man, you have studied during inflammation activated complement proteins. Yes, we learned that last time in mechanism, right? So when you are doing this mechanism, you will eventually come across this complement proteins, right? Yes or no? Yes. Don't stop there. Once you're studying inflammation, if you come across this word complement proteins, and if you feel like you've heard it somewhere else, search for it. Complement system, where did we learn this? Under antimicrobial proteins in innate system internal defenses, yes. Then from this, we go to that. From that, you go to antimicrobial proteins. Then as you're studying this, now you're studying inflammation only. Yeah? You're not studying antimicrobial proteins, you're only studying inflammation. As you're studying inflammation, you came across this term complement proteins. Then you come to this antimicrobial system and see what it says about this form. Read about it. Try to link this complement mechanism and the action of the complement proteins here. So when you do that, surely your brain will form more neuronal connections. And if the brain is forming more neuronal connections, you will remember it for a much longer time. Easily you will remember. Easily. So now, shall I tell you what you all do? Just like how you all are now, I'm sure some of you all recite and memorize Quran or something. Yes, some of you all do. So just like how you all are memorizing Quran or any okay. If you are memorizing the Quran, you'll be like inflammatory response, inflammatory response. This is an innate immune defense response in the body to disease damage triggered by microbial infection. It's an innate immune response. If you study like that, you won't do anything. If you study like that, if I give you right, describe the inflammatory response, you will lesson write perfectly. You will write it 150 marks. If you studied it yesterday, you will be able to get 150 marks today. But you can't do that for the entire resource book. Even if you do that, if I connect a question with this complement and this complement, for example, you will not be able to make the link and answer. You won't be able to make the link and answer. So just memorizing, rote memorizing is never enough. Is never enough. That may be good for essays. You can just write now. If the whatever you studied, if it came, you can just write the essays and move on. But for the MCQ structure, you will not be able to get marks. Even when writing essays, when you memorize something like that, and if you haven't looked at it again and 3 days later, if you try again, you won't remember. Why won't you remember? Because there is no system to remember. So now this way, you know that this inflammation topic is broken down into definition. It is broken down into mechanism. It is broken down into signs and symptoms. This mechanism, this is the mechanism. How does it? Now remember the mechanism like a story. And then over here, signs and symptoms. See heat. Why? Redness. Why? Pain. Why? Swelling. Why? Pus. Why? Fever. Why? Sometimes the resource book will not give you why for this. Sometimes it will not give why. For example, risk factors of hypertension. Have they given why? No. They just said obesity, smoking, LDL, that this. They give. Yes or no? And if you have just memorized it, then LDL proteins, I changed it to HDL proteins in one of my questions and you got it wrong. You got it wrong. Yeah, got it wrong. So what does that mean? Risk factors of hypertension, HDL, LDL proteins, smoking, obesity, like some would have happened 100%. So what you need to do is, you need to first understand why obesity is causing hypertension. Why LDL proteins is hypertension? Why? Why? That is very important. That why is very important. If you understand it properly, and if you make connections like this, you will surely remember it for a longer period of time. But that doesn't mean you will remember it forever. So the way I understood my physiology, I thought I can explain that to anybody. But now I don't think I remember almost. I don't think I remember now since I studied it for this quiz. I remember, but before that I didn't remember much. Because no matter how much effort you put into forming connections, no matter how much you understand, your brain will eventually forget. But the only difference is if you understand it properly, it will take a longer time to forget. If you just memorize it, you will forget it quick. So what you should do is you should understand it very well so that you remember it for a longer period of time. Okay. And then once you're starting to forget, you review it again. It will be much easier. Very simple. Okay. So this is the exact method I follow. And one more thing, I told real world application. That also comes under connections. All of this. Now, if you just take this for physics, if you are learning about gravity or friction, try to think about it in day-to-day life. Think about this table. This table, why is it standing there like that? So now why isn't it going? Okay, if the table is like this, there should be an mg downwards. And since there are 4 legs, there will be a reaction from each leg. Don't look at me like I'm speaking Greek. Have you all done friction? Yes, okay. So if you have a table like this, let's say there's a 2-leg table. Okay, you have mg. Then you have r, 2 r's. If I recall, this 2 r should be equal to this mg. So then there is friction, mu r. Is this for static friction also? I'm not very sure. It's probably for static friction also. I'm not very sure. So then you apply. Okay, frictional force. This frictional force is what probably keeps it in place when I'm trying. Then I'm trying to push it. Imagine I'm trying to push it. I'm trying to push it this way. Why isn't it going? It's probably because of this mu r. There should be a coefficient of this friction of this ground. Maybe that is why it's not moving. Why are you able to sit there and slide around? Think about it that way. Now, how many of you are wearing specs? 2 people are wearing specs. Once you learn optics, you will you will learn about the concave, convex, and how images are formed in the eye in physics. So then you take your specs and see, this eye that I'm seeing in the book is my eye. The images are formed behind my eye. That is why I'm wearing these specs to make it fall on the retina. Think of it that way. So all the questions that they will ask in your physics essay, all of it is practical, real world applications that they will dumb it down so that A-level students can answer. That is what I mean. Real world application mainly applies for physics and chemistry, but unit 5, when you're learning about digestion, tell me how many of you all are eating rice? You all have your phone in one hand and eat rice, or you all just eat rice with your family? Okay. How many of you all eat this rice and while you're eating, you're thinking, as I'm seeing this food, I'm salivating. Why? I learned this, probably because of the nervous reflex that we talked about in the resource book. And then you're biting. This rice is giving me glucose. This rice is giving me energy. How? I think when I'm eating, I'm breaking down this food into smaller particles. As I'm mixing, taking some chicken, some bara curry, and some, let's say, egg. As I'm mixing, I'm thinking, okay, currently, obviously, I won't say it out loud because you can't talk and eat at the same time, you're going to die, right? So, you think, so now my mind voice only I'm telling, okay, I'm breaking down these larger particles into smaller particles. My mouth also maybe have a little salivary amylase that probably breaks down these polysaccharides into smaller. What does amylase do? What is that? Starts to disaccharide. Okay. I'm probably breaking this starch disaccharide. And then I'm swallowing. While I'm swallowing, when I'm swallowing, I couldn't breathe. Why was that? Probably because the epiglottis is closing the larynx and allowing pathway to go to the esophagus. At the top part only, I could feel the swallowing. But the stomach is somewhere here. I could only feel the swallowing over here. What about the remaining parts? I couldn't feel it, That means there are smooth muscles there. Because smooth muscles is not voluntary. It's involuntary. Here you have skeletal muscles. That's why you could feel it. So when you have a very, when you, the food is there, but you all eat in such a way, such that you all think people are coming for your food. Don't worry, I am also eating the same. I am also a fast eater. So sometimes you feel you swallow a lot, it hurts, but then after that it doesn't hurt. Because it's going into your smooth muscles and the viscera. Okay. So then think of it that way. Okay. Now, how is it going down? Am I constantly for it to go down? No. It's automatically going down. That means what? That movement, peristalsis movement is taking place. It's going into the stomach. Okay, now in the stomach, now this food has everything, no? So how will the stomach break down? Our stomach has gastric acid. Then why aren't I feeling the acidity in my stomach? Okay, if you have gastritis, you're technically feeling it, but you all don't have gastritis now, no? Why am I not feeling the gastritis now? Probably because these mucus cells are secreting mucus. It's not hurting me because this mucus is protecting my stomach lining. Okay, then what happens to something? What happens to other food particles? Our pepsin breaks down the protein and then intestines. So now this is an example. That's what I mean by real world application. So when you apply it into your real life, so now once you do unit 5, you can do that a lot. So now when I'm talking, you can hear, no? So at the same time, once you do hearing in unit 5, you will know how the tympanic membrane is vibrating, how the vibration travel through the cochlea, and then from that to the brain. So you will learn that later. But think of it that way, practical apply. This resource book is not only just a bunch of text. Real world things for us to learn, they have put it inside a resource book. So most of us are stuck in the rat race where we need to get highest marks. Correct? You need to get highest marks only. But then besides that point, try to understand and realize now these are not just random things that are there in the book. These are real life things that takes place that they are explaining it to you. Not only humans, plants. Once you're going out using, it's raining, no? The plants must have water. How does the water from the soil go to the plant? Even the leaf needs the plant. So how does the water from the soil go to the plants? Radial transport, xylem transport, transpiration. Think of it that way. Think of it that. So whenever you see, whenever you apply, you will learn. So once you learn like this properly, review, recall, practice. You're sorted. How many of you are learning like this? Raise your hand honestly. No good. That is a problem. But for sure, the ones who are doing really well still learn like this. The ones who are doing really well surely learn like this. Because if not, they can't do well. Can't do well if you don't learn like this. Okay, clear. So if you follow this, you should be able to learn really well. And once you learn really well, the recall and the review part, you can just do it. Okay, practice questions.